Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you guys are tuned in. Welcome to another episode of Watercolor Instructions. I'm going to do one of the favorite subject of mine, cityscapes. So on the image, so just to start, the materials I'm using is a Saunders 300 grams watercolor, stretched, and I put a couple of cans of beans for an inclination. I'm going to put in a slide of all the brushes I use and all the colors I use in the end of the video. Don't forget to check that out. I'll pause it for like 10 seconds. And then also it's a John Pike palette on my right side with a couple of waters, a little bit of sponge, and a roll of tissue, not to forget. All these things are a bit essential. And also something which you want to have a small spray bottle. Helps if the painting is getting dry. You want to help that out by putting in a little more water. So the sketch, it's always handy to start a sketch with the tonal, how it looks as a tone, where the shadows and other things. So I usually start with a simple sketch. The kids have scribbled on this one, but there's plenty enough for what I'm doing. So I'm doing a landscape mode. So you can see there is, that's the start of the building, which is slightly covered, but I'm going to assume it's that particular shape. So there is the horizon, and it goes all the way till there, and that's another Paris building. So you know you're in Paris by the style of the architecture. So I'm not going to do the front end. And then there's plenty of trees. So I'm assuming it's like that. That's the style of the building. And then the main star is the red awnings. I'm going to do completely red instead of trying to cut the way they have done it. I'm just going to do a complete red. Just adds a little more drama. And okay, so, and there's another series of so there's 3 series. Something like that. There's a couple of bikes parked here, and there's a railing with a footpath. I'm going to do the cars. There's a truck, and there's a couple of people walking around, and not to mention there's a couple of people standing here, and obviously in the cafe. And I'm going to add some details. So it's always good to just do a quick monochrome sketch just to know where everything stands. So in this one, there is no shadows. So if you notice the car, there is a little bit of shadow over here. So I'm going to exaggerate that. So I'm going to make it a little light. So that side is the shadow, these buildings. Over here is the main shadow, and I'm going to just do a little, I'm assuming there's a little more shadow on this side. I'm going to just improvise a little bit. And something like that. I'm gonna, obviously there's the red awning is a lot darker, a little more doors and windows, and not to forget there's a little bit of the trees cover there. And the red awnings and gray in front. Something in that fashion. So obviously the sky, I'm going to try to keep it with a couple of simple clouds. We'll see how it goes. But that's roughly what I'm trying to do. So the sun is obviously coming in from that particular direction, at least in this case. So I'm going to use that, do a little more sun here, most of the sun here, sun on that side, and the shadow. That would be my sketch. All right, let's crack on with the actual painting. So before that, I just want to get the perspective right for a bigger painting. So you got your road, and the same thing on the other side. I'm assuming that's where it goes. So that's, let's say, I'm putting in the bigger volumes first. And I'll come back and then tune it to see if that particular, okay, something like that. And then we're talking about that particular building, roughly about that height, so slightly smaller, same style building, and in fact it goes a little back. Okay, so, and there's plenty of trees to cover that area, and the building starts all the way and goes into the horizon. And obviously there's trees which I'm going to come in the end. Not over here, maybe I'm just going to cover that area. So that one is a bit too much leaves, I feel. So I'm going to just do a little bit of leaves on that side. And not to forget, something in that style. And let me just break it down to number of floors. So that's first floor, second floor. Okay. All right, let's continue. Floors and floors. There's trees. So I'm going to narrow down the passage, just that you guys don't get confused. I'm just going to erase that line, make the one which is working for us. Okay. So, and there's also, let me add another building. So in that, so that's where it goes. I'm going to add, and there is a small awning as well. And let me just add a couple of people here. Okay, everything looks okay, and I'm going to add a couple more people. I like to add a dog. Okay, and let's start adding a few more bits and bobs. So that one is the most important bit, is the awning. So I'm gonna increase the awning from all the way till there. There are obviously doors going on, and then obviously if you haven't seen the last episode, what I tend to do is to place the table. I do a plane, so I know all the tables needs to be placed in that particular table. There are some white chairs, plenty of white chairs. I'm not going to add all the white chairs, but there's some white chairs, and then the tables. And in fact, the footpath is a bit more narrow, and I'm going to finish it off here. So we don't need so much of a footpath. I'll have to double check. Okay, and there is a light pole. It's slightly smaller, not so long. And I'm going to add another light pole over here. So roughly about the same height over here, and perspective out there. And now comes the car. I'm going to bring the car a little, so that's the road. I'm going to bring the car a little closer. So we are looking at the back of the car. You can see the top of the car. And I'll add another car, maybe a hatchback. Okay, and maybe a car over here from the front. And that's a divider. So car, not to forget the shadows. Okay, so focus, that's going on, and there's a garbage bin. Perspective is important, and also I'm going to add another person about that height. Chatting away, that's fine. So there's a couple more plant pots. I'm going to use that to fill that area so that it's a nice easy cover. So this one covers over here, and there is a truck. That's it. Okay, so here, okay, I'm just thinking twice about should I put a scooter or it's just going to get complicated. I'm going to try to put a scooter. So also, not to mention, there are zebra crossing. Okay, let's put a scooter. So the scooter sits in that particular plane. It's important you understand a little bit of perspective. I've done a whole episode about perspective, drawing scooters and other things. If you have any confusion about city vehicles, have a look at that. Should give you an idea. So I'm going to do a few more cycles. Okay, that should be fine. And then let's move to this corner. So there's a door at each corner. I'm not sure I'm going to put some plants, but I will leave that one. And for this particular thing, I'm going to just use the building design in the back. Some antennas. I'm going to come and do it, freewing it. So that's the first building. So 3 floors. And I have a slightly second building offset it, and there is the third building slightly longer, and so forth. So I'm going to just vary the size a little bit just to get a feel for. Okay, so that's enough buildings, and then also I'm going to put in a truck or a car coming in this direction. Why don't I put it in a same height? Okay, that's plenty in the worksheet. And then also I'm gonna maybe, is there any signs? I can't see any signs. Okay, we're gonna put in a couple of lights, and that should do it. So it's a little busy. We'll see how I'm going to manage to fit that within that one. So I'm going to use a mop brush to get the clouds in. It's a little gray, so I'm not going to use cerulean blue, just a little bit of blue gray. I'm going to use a little gray light. I'm going to come in. That one is probably a little dark, but I'm going to dilute it on the paper. That's still a little dark for me. I'm going to come in still a bit too dark. I will dilute it. Add a little more water, dilute it, keep diluting it till you're happy with it. Okay. I'm all right with that. See how the bead, you can control the bead. It's easy. Okay, so I'm going to just soak up that particular bead. And throw in a little more clouds. Okay. 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 I'm going to quickly dry that because we don't have time for Okay, so we're coming to the second layer. So the second layer is a little bit of yellow ochre, light yellow ochre. So if you notice that, that's what we are trying to achieve. So I'm going to come in predominantly everywhere that is yellow ochre. This one is mixed with slightly a little crimson, so I'm going to just, okay. Okay. And I'm going to dilute a little more the main building. So paying attention for the doors so that we can come back and then color a different color for the doors. Okay. And green. And I'm going to do a little red, little warmer color. Okay. All right. And the main center obviously is the bright orange yawning. Yawning. Also, there's a little bit of yawning over here. You can't see it, but I will let it bleed a little bit. And then we continue inside. I'll let that bleed, but I'm using a slightly smaller brush to continue. And I'm going to try to keep those chairs so coming in, switching back and forth between big brush and smaller brush to complete. Leave the vehicles so that I can come back. A little dark.
Relentless.
Okay. Continue doing the same thing. A scooter. And while I'm coming close, I'm just being mindful of the zebra crossing. So I'm just coming in. So little bit on the other side, and then we are almost finished with here our initial but very important coat. So all right, so we have done with most of the painting, but also what I might do is just take off a little more, couple of lines, just for perspective. Okay. All right. Okay, we're almost there. So when you look at it, this is what we are trying to do. So I'm going to come in, go a little darker. I'm going to use a dry brush to add some highlights, but that's what I'm trying to do. So I'm going to just stick with a little bit of synthetic brush at the moment. And I'm going to go a little bit of yellow ochre, slightly darker, a little bit blue. Just picking up the old colors left in that one. So obviously I'm using that as a reference. So I'm going to just go roughly. There's no so that would be our tone and that would be our shadow. I'm just going to put in little dark and blue. It's good to mix little dark and blue tones. Okay, so also I'm going to come in some foliage or something. There's a shadow in that corner. Okay, that's fine with me. And now the same thing, I'm going to come in, cover that area. Okay, and then usually they have green yawning on the top. Make it a little lighter. Same thing goes over here. There's a green yawning. That's about it. And I'm going to continue with crimson, burnt umber, come in, and that's the front. I'm going to come in. Mark that particular area. Okay, and this particular building, same thing. So roughly we're almost there. I'm going to just come in, add a little more darker colors, the shadows. Okay, and continue with the shadows. So Okay, and I keep continuing. I'm building up a layer. I'm beating up the brush in the front just to get that extra, punishing the brush to get that leaf going. Okay, it's a mix of, all right. Okay, there's a little more tree or bush. Okay, all right, so I'm fine with that. And now let's start adding a little more details to one building, the second building, and then so forth. So, so obviously the building in the background doesn't need to have lots of details, but just enough so that it looks and feels more authentic. So we're looking at 3 layers. Okay, I'm going to come in, add a little more detail. A lot more dark under the awning. Stuff going on, antennas, whatnot on the top. And we're coming to the next set of buildings. In this building, seeing 3 sets of huge doors or windows. Continuing, and not to forget, we need a little darker footpath. And keep adding the details. Okay, now we finished that building. Now we're going to go that particular building, so add a little more details, random places, 3 floors, try to be consistent. So okay, that's enough details needed for that, but I'm going to come in, add a little more shadow and the antenna. As and when it's needed. Okay. There's a couple of big doors. Okay, that's enough details on that particular one. Now coming to the main building. Luckily the trees are covering it, so all we are doing is just one layer or one floor. One floor. Let's add a little more details. A little more details. Now going to the window. A little bit of indigo. A little bit of indigo. And a touch of darkness on the side. And I'm going to come with a liner or reservoir and then come in. Come in. Okay. Okay, there's a couple more. And a few. Okay, and about here, there's a few antennas, random things. Okay. Okay. So now we're almost coming to the bottom of the painting, so I'm going to just darken it. And be pretty dark. There is the door. At this stage, I'm going to just spray a little bit of water. Give a kiss. Let it bleed a little bit. There's people standing or random other things. So there's a couple of people slowly coming in. Okay, so that's where the shadow goes. Okay, now let's do that Vespa. Black seat, tire, a little bit of handle, and crucial shadows. So I'm gonna put in a couple more cycles, some sort of reference. That's enough. And now let's start building the cards. Okay. Tires. And there's a couple more people. Yeah, let's not forget them. Okay, there's a dog. Okay, slowly, surely coming. Not to mention the footpath. Let's finish the other cars. Tires, a little bit of details. Same thing, more tires. This is car going away from us. So we're trying to add those fundamentals. And slightly bigger brush, the shadows, which are very key. So okay. Okay, so things to do is to drop a little bit of color for the front and the back. I'm just taking bright pigment. Okay. And red color. There's a little bit of white. Okay. So the front end needs to be tidy up a little bit. And that area needs to be tidy up. So there's a little bit of trees. And oh, there's a truck sitting there as well. Okay. So not to forget the shadows of everything you see. And now there's a little bit of railings over here. Probably we could put a railing over here, and that will complete some sort of sense on this side as well. I think so. That's much better. No, there is another truck in the background. So, doors. Why don't we put another rating over there? That way it completes. Okay, so the center railing. And final touches, a little bit of electric post and then tree trunks. So tree trunks, not to forget the electric pole. So I'm going to go electric pole. Well, setting about the same height. Perspective. Oh, it's too thick. That is the start of it. And now I'm going to just cover that area by a little bit of leaves. So I'm going to just bruise the brush in the front, take the pigment and maybe a slightly bigger brush. So I'm going to fairly keep it pigment and I'm going to go till there. So it gives that texture. That's fine. I'm gonna just go do the smaller branches first. come back and then do the bigger branch. Okay, so slightly the bigger branches. Okay, so that area, the trees look a little dark, but that's okay. Okay. Okay, that I would call it quits.